Hey, so thanks for coming on the show, all the way from Sweden.
Thank you.
Why don't you start by telling us a bit about what you guys have been doing in Sweden? Like, what's your campaign been demanding, and what has it been doing?
All right. Try to make this a long story short then.
You don't have to. You don't have to make it short. You can make it long. It's okay. That's the point of the podcast. You can tell long stories.
But you will cut anyway, right?
We'll see.
All right. All right. So, Återställ, Våtmarker, restore wetlands. We've been working now for 1.5 years, and so we started the 2nd of January. Really, that was the start, 2022. We were just 2 people that met up in a dark cellar, and decided that it's about time to do something else. We both, the other person was Alfred West, we've both been engaged in XR quite heavily for a long time. And now, actually I can see what you have in the background, we were inspired by Insulate Britain quite a lot. Yeah, we've been following you and the amazing work you did on the highways, and how you managed to get into the media scene, and how you managed to get out with your demand and your message. So we were inspired by you.
Wow.
Yeah, and we also met up, I can't remember exactly when that was, but this was this meeting with Roger Helen, and we all took part in that meeting, and I think he was starting to talk about Just Stop Oil, or the beginning of that, and so on. So we decided we're going to do the same thing, and I can't remember now. It's been so intense these 1.5 years. But at some point, we got in touch with probably the international support group, and we were planning to become a part of the project A22 network. So we sat in this cellar, and like with this massive, it was really dark, small cellar, but this massive whiteboard in front of us, and yeah, that's where it started. How do you build a campaign, and all the steps, and the grand theory and the vision and so on. And we actually got in touch with some of you from Insulate Britain to discuss demand. And we landed in like in our context in Sweden that this about the wetlands is a really big thing, because we've digged out 70 to 90% of all the wetlands in Sweden, and these wetlands, dried out wetlands, are now emitting 25% of our emissions. So this was like the optimal demand, because it's also so easy, so cheap, and also according to IPCC, one of the most effective ways to lower your emissions. So there we are, and that's how it started.
I understand that, because wetlands naturally acts as a carbon sink. Wetlands are normally carbon negative. So if you could change if you could change them back to the wetlands, it goes from being a carbon producer to being a carbon absorber, which obviously is what we need right now.
Yeah, that's true. So we actually, in our demand, we had like almost 2 demands. It was all about the wetlands, but we also, like, including in that demand, it was on the first line, it was like we wanted a prohibition of excavating peat, because in Sweden we also have these peat mining fields, and peat is something quite amazing, because they store enormous amount of coal. So but you've seen our banner, and it says Restore Wetlands, Återställ, Våtmarker on the banner. We went out on highways for days and days and days, action week after action week after action week, for 3 action waves. And so like the whole, like the media scene, in the end, it was all about wetlands. So like the 2022, the discussion and the conversation in the media was about wetlands. But I'm moving ahead too fast.
No, it's okay. It's great. Can I say I'm really excited to have you on the show because obviously I was part of Undisturbed Britain, and then to see other countries around the world like get inspired by that and start doing the same things in their country. Obviously, that is so amazing to see. Like, I think in one point during Undisturbed Britain we were down to like 60 people.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, since the end of Undisturbed Britain, we've just seen those numbers increase. Like, even in the UK, we've probably got like more than 10 times more people, maybe 1,000 people now, and it's so great to see new faces. And I've also been talking to people from Blockade Australia as well about what they've been doing in their country, and they've also been inspired by Undisturbed Britain. So it's really inspiring to talk to you now and hear about how it's been in your country. Could you tell us a bit about how's the mobilisation been in your country? So you said you started with 2 people. Like, how many people would you say are in your organisation now?
Yeah, now I'm not sure, but we have from the beginning of January there is about 400 people that signed up for actions. And if you compare that to when we started, like the first action wave, when we went out on the highways, we were about 20 people.
Wow.
We were about 20, 30 people, like for the whole first year. Mm-hmm. And it was this small group of people that were so dedicated. They signed up for going out on the highways in these 3 action waves that we had. And that is a long story because there is a difference between these 3 action waves and what happened. But there was a small group, and they were really the people that went ahead and showed everyone this is actually possible with a small group. Because after our 3rd action wave, I don't know what happened. Suddenly, like everywhere in the Swedish media, on television, on radio, they were talking about wetlands.
Yes.
Yeah, that was quite amazing. But it took 3 action waves. In the beginning was all this hate storm, and who are these crazy, stupid idiots sitting on the highway stuff, and that continued for quite a while. But we had some. During our journey, we had some, it's incredible that things really happen when you are actually engaging in actions that have this enormous potential. Suddenly there are things happening, like these lucky stars that went along with us that made us succeed in a way, I would say, because in late November we also made a poll. So after 8 months of actions or so, we made a poll, and that poll said that 75% of the Swedish population now wants to restore wetlands and think that it's important or even very important. And then they didn't like our methods, but the name recognition was 61% or something like that. So that was good, yeah.
It's quite phenomenal, really. We've seen a similar thing in the UK. With Undisturbed Britain, we saw the conversation around insulation was now happening more in more places, and even the government was talking about now starting new big insulation projects. There was even the UK government decided to start an insulation project, and they were going to call it Undisturbed Britain until somebody came along and said, whoa, we can't call it this name. that's those people. And they're like, oh shit. So they almost called the thing Undisturbed Britain, which would have been really funny. But yeah, it is amazing now, because even with Just Stop Oil, we're now seeing in the media support for stopping new oil licenses. I think the civil resistance causing disruption on the motorways, it pisses a lot of people off, but it starts a conversation.
Yeah.
It starts a conversation.
Exactly.
They don't like our methods, but we're not here to be liked. This is not a popularity contest,
No.
I received a lovely message. So when I got out of prison last year, I received a lovely message from you on your thingy. Because when I was in prison, I was writing speeches and putting speeches out in the A22 network. Do you remember messaging me?
Oh yes, I did, because on our mail there was this message from a woman with one of your speeches. I didn't know that you made several, but one of these speeches, she said you can use it however you like.
Yeah.
And we started to use that. We have like action training for every time, almost 2 days in a row, like from 10 to 5, Saturday, Sunday, before we go out into action. So we think it's really, really important with the action training in peaceful resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we read out your letter, that was a part of our action training. And actually, every time I've been reading your letter, it's so emotional. And the more emotional I feel, the more emotional the people listening to your letter they are getting. So it's been really, thank you for that. It's been really helpful for us to read that letter. So thanks a lot for that.
That means so much to me personally, because sometimes you don't, because when I was in prison, you don't see how far your words can go, you know, because all you see are the four walls, you know, no social media or anything like that. So I was sending these messages out and then not knowing like how far they're going to go. But when I got out of prison and I read your message, I've been reading your speech in Sweden, I was like, what? You know? Yeah, so it's really inspiring. I think it's also important to know, like, I make this point quite often, if you're new to the idea of civil resistance and you're thinking, well, I don't know how much impact I can have, well, this is almost evidence for you to show that we don't know how far like the ripples of our actions go. So, for example, when we do something, it makes like ripples on a pond, and we don't know how far they go. They can go really, really far and touch a lot of people, and then cause more people to become inspired and more people to take action. And then obviously they're making more ripples, and then they goes even further. So do not underestimate how far, you know, how far the effects of your action can go.
No, exactly. And that's why it's also good to be a part of the international network, because together we can be really strong if we dedicate ourselves also to being a part, not only our own campaign, but seeing to like the whole network and what we can do together. So yeah,
I'm going to try and bring all these networks together on this podcast to all share their experiences. Yeah,
that's good.
So if you want to help out by maybe getting some more people from Sweden can come on the show, that'd be really cool. We get more, hear some stories from people on the road. Oh. Sorry, one sec. Oh yeah, have it back. Yeah. So that'd be really, really cool to get like trying to get people from all over the world. So can I ask about? So what have the police been like in your country? Like how have the police been responding to you?
Yeah, they were the repression was quite strong, like almost immediately, like the second day, almost the first day, I think, because the crime suspicion was sabotage, and sabotage means up to 4 years in prison. But the most amazing thing was that even though the people going out on the highways, like the first day of the first week and the action wave, they were getting the suspicion of sabotage, they went out the next day. They went to the cells, they went out next day, and it kept on like this. They went back to the streets, and that was really, really powerful.
Yeah.
And then it's been like this all the way along. And sometimes they put people in custody for a couple of days, but people go out again. And this been a big success for us. But then the third action wave, there was this ambulance incident. That's what we call it in Sweden, the ambulance incident. An ambulance was delayed, and it got like so big, and all the people were put in custody, and stay there up to the. There is some strange sound.
You're gonna have to give me 1 minute. Let me just move this cat.
Yeah, this is a powerful story because, like, all the people that went out that day when the ambulance was delayed, and actually it was delayed by the police, but that's not the official story, of course. It was a big boom, and of course everyone. It was so intense, and everyone got were in custody, and they in the end they stayed in custody up to the trial. But what happened was that after this ambulance incident day, there was a new group going out on the highway, and of course they were also put in custody, and now everyone sort of.
Was anyone being remanded? Was anyone being taken to the prison?
No. Up to they were stayed in prison or whatever you call it, at the police station, the special police station, up to the trial.
Yeah.
That was 5 weeks later. So we had this big trial. But the thing is, after this, like the big incident, blah blah, a new group went out the day after.
Brilliant.
And this really caught the media attention. Now the media was like, they were ringing constantly. We had this long waiting list. Can I call you back in 2 hours? Can I call you back in 3 hours? Blah blah blah, for like almost a week. And then we had the day for the trial. It was a big trial for the 14 people. And the very morning the trial started, we had this new group of people going out on the highway, and that also caught the media attention. And it was after this that the media suddenly just started to talk about wetlands, like every week, like everyone was talking about wetlands. So yeah, that's the story. But the sabotage is a quite heavy crime suspicion. It's never happened before. That's like peaceful climate activists gets this crime suspicion, and there are constantly things happening that is like evidence on that our state, our politicians, because they also made a lot of statements about take them immediately, throw them into prison, take them from the street, throw them into prison. So this is what some of the politicians say. And
we have the same in the UK.
Yeah.
Over here they made some new laws. They had a new law, which is a police crimes and sentencing bill, where they created a law. It's a new law called public nuisance. It's a public nuisance offence, but they've upped the charge, so it's more severe now. They can throw you to prison for blocking a road or using lock-ons.
Yeah, I've heard about that. And of course, it's like, it was hard for us after like this autumn. It was hard for us to mobilize new people, so we started a new strategy. And this was also after meeting the A22 network and seeing that Just Stop Oil went out in these slow marches or slow walks. And we made up a new strategy for this year, where we started like a campaign to boycott to the peat, and the peat are sold in planting soil. Like a planting soil sack is like 80-90% of peat, and we started this boycott, and then we went out on slow walks, and then just like July we were out for 4 weeks on the peat mining fields and digging the ditches, doing like what do you say, when you put peat in the ditches, there like a peat mining field, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ditches where they drain the peat mining field from water, and we plugged those ditches for 4 weeks, and then we ended up in custody again. So I just been let out like a few days ago. I've been in custody for 12 days.
Wow.
Not as long as you.
Can you tell us about your experience in custody? So what were you doing? Obviously, don't incriminate yourself. don't give the courts any like evidence, maybe, but try in your best way to tell us how did you get in custody and what was it like?
Now, actually, at a certain time, I was stressed out because there are lots of things to do. We're in the middle of this enormous catastrophe, and there is like no time to wait. I just wanted to get out and do things.
Mm-hmm.
So that stressed me out. And and also, I like walking. I like walk a lot.
Yeah.
And to be sent into a cell, which is really, really small, made me like crazy in a way. And then I just had to handle that. And you know, we're talking about during our trainings the like the love message, Gandhi's love message, how you should see behind the person that you have in front of you, the guards and so on. But I got pissed off with them because the rules, there were one rule, the other day, one day, next rule, blah, blah. There was such a mess. You can't understand what they want, and when you're supposed to talk about things, ask for things, and it pissed me off, and I got angry. I got angry with them, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm really disappointed at myself. I can't live this love message all the way through. So this was like a small or mega crisis for me. I can't carry that through. What I even though we're working so hard, we want to really have this peaceful resistance. And I sat in the cell and I got pissed off with the guards. But then I was also like, you got this situation. How can you work it out? So we had this different kind of projects. One project was the coffee war, because you're not only allowed one cup of coffee in the morning, and I think that was that was out of the question. So I had this coffee war. I tried to get like 2 cup of coffees every morning. I managed only once, and then my next project was to see if I could manage to make the guards do a little bit of civil disobedience, go against their own rules.
Yeah.
And then you have to pinpoint what kind of, this is the person. And I actually managed a few times to make them break their own rules. So that was good.
Can you give us an example?
For example, you're only allowed to shower once every second day. So I managed to have shower every day. I managed, you're only supposed to have training every second day. And I managed to get training several days in a row. And you only got 4 nicotine chewing gums a day. But if you ask the right person, you managed to get 4 more, and so on. Like small things, but it was still good fun.
Do you want to hear a bit of one quick story about when I was in prison?
Yeah.
So once a month or something like that, they would bring like a box of like salt and pepper onto the wing, and then open it, and all the prisoners would just take loads and loads, and then the rest of the prisoners would get none. So the first time I remember, like on the first like week or something, they had the box there, so I took loads and loads. I got like a big bag full, and after a few months, the bag went down and down and down. Eventually, it was gone. And I was asking, is there any more salt? Is there any more salt? Because I like to have salt on my food, but there was no salt. Like I couldn't get any salt anywhere. So for like probably like 3 or 4 weeks, there's like no salt on my food, and I'm like, oh, really annoyed. And I was doing like an art class, you know, where you do like painting and drawing and stuff like that. And the teacher was talking to one of the other prisoners, and she said, oh, do you want to add some texture to your painting? I've got just the thing to add in the texture. And she said, here, try this. Puts a big bag of salt on the table. Yeah, use this in your paint. And I was like, I was like, can I use this salt in my painting too? And she's like, yeah. So I've got like a coffee cup with the lid that unscrews. So I go to the sink and I throw my coffee away and I wash it and I dry it with some tissue. And I take like this much salt and put it in the coffee cup. And then I sneak it out of the art class at the end to my cell. So then I had a bag of salt in my cell, so I could And then other prisoners wanted some salt as well, so I'd like put some in a little bag for them and give them some little salt. And I was salt rich because I had the thing that nobody else had.
Ah, good story. So you were out to go to some workshop and do paintings.
Yeah.
Aha.
Yeah, it was really good, to be honest, because I was able to spend quite a lot of time working on my paintings, and just, you know, I think it would have been a very different experience if I wasn't allowed to do that. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I think I did quite a lot of paintings in prison, actually. Some like big oil paintings and things like that.
Wow, that's
so,
great.
Can I ask? So what's been happening recently in Sweden then? With
yes, we had this demand to our government that they should immediately prohibit. Do you say that? Prohibition. Have a prohibition to stop the peat mining, and the most extraordinary thing is that the company that owns 70% of the peat mining production in Sweden is actually Finnish state-owned. So this is
really,
it should be really it should be like a big story. So we've been asking for this. This is our demand, and they don't give a fuck, of course. It's been really hard to move forward, to put pressure on with our demand. So in July, we decided we're going to do the thing that the government isn't doing. We're going to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
So we were lots of people for 4 weeks going out on the peat mining fields and actually carrying out the government's work. We were like putting an end to the peat mining fields. We wanted to close it down. We're lowering the emissions by putting these plugs into the ditches. And it was this beautiful story actually through these 4 weeks. We had 4 weekends of action training, new people coming in, new people going out on the peat mining field, working with shovels every day. The shovels were taken away by the police. We have to buy new shovels, getting out, plugging the ditches. The police came, taking our shovels and so on. And then they started, the repression became stronger the first week. And the second week we went somewhere else. We've been at different peat mining fields. The second week we went to another place. And we were out on the peat mining fields working like hell, plugging ditches.
Well, that sounds like hard work.
Came. Yeah, it was powerful to be there, doing it. It was a relief, like doing this kind of action. And also, like, very emotional as well, because it's such a wasteland of just a brown, dead desert, and the emissions are so high from the peat. It's twice as much as if you compare to oil, gas, and coal. It's twice as much. So it's extremely important nature. The second week, no police came, so we went to the police station ourselves, like 14 people. We want to report ourselves, and they like, no, get out. We don't want to deal with you. Just leave the police station. It was, oh my God, what's happening? We're trying to report ourselves and say that we've been actually now digging, and they just say leave. Next day we went back to the police station and said, well, this time we're not giving up. We're staying here in the police station until we're able to report ourselves. We want to know. We want to have it tried out in court. Who is damaging, like severe damage? Well, that was the crime suspicion that we got the week before. Severe damage to our nature, and also something, a crime suspicion when you enter somewhere when you're not allowed to enter. So, well, that was that story. And then the next week we were escalating, and the third week we were escalating, and then we ended up in custody. But and the last week it was also really beautiful, because it ended up with people going onto the peat mining fields again and throwing out seeds, because then the peat mine is destroyed in a way, because it should be sterile, without seeds. So a beautiful story.
That's clever.
It was beautiful. It didn't generate that much media attention.
Can I add to that?
Highway.
I want to add to that. We've seen a similar experience here in the UK. So on the M25, we got loads of media coverage, but we got complaints like saying, why don't you go to the source of the problem? So in April 2022, we went to the oil terminals, where all the oil is kept, and we shut them down. We broke through the fence, we climbed on the oil terminals, we chain ourselves to them, we glue ourselves to them, climb on the roof, and we stopped the oil. We actually stopped 53% of all the petrol in the United Kingdom for a few weeks. Yeah. But the media didn't cover it didn't get any attention at all. So it just comes to show that physically disrupting the thing you're protesting against, even though it's the right thing to do in my opinion, doesn't get the media coverage, the media attention. In my opinion, and it's not been done yet here in the UK, but in my opinion, we need to do both at the same time. So we need to split the group into two sections, and one group attack the source of the problem, and one group cause anger and outrage by stopping the roads, because then they can feed off each other, and then people who come into the organisation can choose, do you want to do this one and get the media, or do you want to do this one and stop the problem? And I think if we do, I hope that Just Stop Oil does that in the next action phase in the UK and give people a choice, this or this, because then we'd be in the media and we'd be disrupting the oil, and the people in the media can, our spokespeople who go in the media would be able to talk about the disruption of the oil. But yeah, we've seen a similar thing here in the UK about that, not getting the media coverage.
Yeah, it's quite obvious. It's really hard to reach out. It's catching no interest, but we've done it. Now we got our back free, because everyone was complaining, why don't you go out into the peat mines and do it yourself, blah, blah, blah. It's been going on for a year. But now we've done it. We got our back free, we did what the government didn't want to do. And now we are in a state when, we don't want to talk to the politicians any longer. Mm-hmm. It's no point. It's a political disaster. The democracy is a disaster, and their policy is actually killing us. The emissions are in Sweden rising, and we have nothing more to say to the politicians, to our government. Now we have to find our own pathway to decide what kind of society we want to live in. So now we're going for much more talk about democracy, much more talk about oh my god, I lost the word. Medborgarråd. Citizen assembly, sorry. Mm-hmm. So this is what's coming up. This is the discussion we're having now. Because we're fed up with the politicians. Completely fed up with them. And it doesn't matter if they are whatever, if they're on the left hand side or on the right hand side. It's the same shit everywhere. They're actually killing us. Nothing is happening.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I do agree with that. Is somebody? I can hear a noise in your end of it. Is somebody typing on a computer or something near you? No? Oh, never mind. I can hear a crackling sound, but it's okay. I think it's just the earphones. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a question. So, for you personally, what was it like? Can you talk about the moment that you realised that the climate emergency was a serious problem for you? What was that moment like, from it being a problem over there to a problem that you've got to do something about?
Well, I've been teaching, so it's been there constantly with me. I'm also all the time been carrying through such projects with my students. And then I think it was a slow process when it all hits you. It hits you slowly, and it hits you again, and hits you, and it's the same time. It's the same thing. still I think, because it's so hard to grasp that we are actually putting an end to the civilization, to ourselves, that we are destroying the future of our children, the world's young generation, and that, well, who can understand that we are on the brink of losing Amazonas, that we are on the brink of losing all the glaciers, that millions and billions of people will have no water and will have this mass immigration, and that will maybe the whole, all the seas are like breaking. You can't grasp it. It's really too much.
It's a massive. It is a lot to get your head around. It's the thing is, it's not just one problem. There's like 10 problems, and they all kind of interlock with each other like a jigsaw puzzle. But it is that I feel like for a lot of people, there's a moment where you realise, oh fuck, like this is going to affect me. This is going to affect my children. Can I ask about, was there a moment for you that you realised that it was going to affect your children and you?
Not a moment. It's been. I mean, I've been on the subject, and I've been thinking about all the suffering that we are causing ourselves and the nature for a long time, and it got a moment where I've just said, I have to do something. I've had enough. I can't be part of causing this suffering. I have to act upon what I know. But I can't remember like an exact moment. It's been growing and growing and growing. I've been engaging in both with my students and then in climate movement. So I can't remember the moment.
Okay. So have you guys been putting on talks like we have over here, where you have like when you're mobilising? So over here we do like ORAP talks, or what they call welcome talks now. But have you been doing similar things like that? How have you been outreaching?
Yeah, we've been doing it different ways, but we have talks where we invite people in different cities, and we have also these bigger presentations on where we invite a lot of people. It's an open presentation online, and those presentations every third month or something gathered a lot of people, and actually those presentations often led to more people signing up for actions. And they are open. I mean, we are as transparent as Letzte Generation. I think we are completely open with everything. So they are on our YouTube channel for everyone to watch.
Okay.
And then also we realized that slow walks, to arrange slow walks in different cities is also a really good way to mobilize people. Then you start with like maybe a talk, and then have an action training, and then go out on like a faster pathway to action, because it can happen during 1 week. Talk, training, out the next Saturday or Friday, for instance. So it goes a faster pathway, and that works also.
We've had the same.
Quite well.
We've had the same in the UK over here. We've been doing slow marches in London, and then people have been signing up to join Just the Poil, doing their non-violence training, and then joining the slow marches like less than a week later. So yeah, it has been the same over here as well.
That's good.
Can I ask, have you, so in Sweden, have you had any of your people had any prison sentences yet?
Yeah, but not. We have one climate activist in prison, but that was not for doing actions with Återställ, Våtmarker, restore wetlands. It was because he was stopping airplanes.
Right.
Yeah.
More serious then.
Yeah.
Is he still in prison?
It takes a long time, the whole process. So that the people that were out on the highways last year, they are having their trials now in
Yeah.
the court. So it takes a long time.
Yeah, same over here. The people from Insulate Britain are now getting their court cases through now, and now we're getting our punishments, even though it's been 2 years.
And are they sent to prison? Do they get prison
Yeah,
sentences?
people do go to prison. I had a guy on recently, David Nixon. So what's happening in the UK? I don't know if it's the same in Sweden, but the judges have been saying that you're not allowed to talk about climate change in the court. The judge can decide what the jury hears and what they don't hear, and the judges think climate change is irrelevant to this case, so you can't talk about it.
It's insane.
It really is. It really is. So back to David Nixon. So the judge said to David Nixon, you can't talk about climate change, you can't talk about fuel poverty, you can't talk about your reasons, you can't talk about your motivations, you can't talk about it being the right thing to do, you can't talk about civil resistance or Gandhi or the suffragettes or anything like that, And in my opinion, it's similar to if you saw a child in the road and a car is flying towards the child and you run and you tackle the child out of the road and you hit the ground, but the child gets hurt, but you save the child, and then they take you to court, and they say, right, you can't talk about the car, you can only talk about hurting the child. It wouldn't make sense with that context. So anyway, so David Nixon, who's been on the show, he represented himself, so he had no solicitors, so he could talk himself, and the judge said, don't talk about climate change, and he talked about climate change and all the points that he was not allowed to say. So the judge disbanded the court, so he finished the court, ended it. He said, right, everyone, jurors, leave. This is finished now. The court's cancelled. I said, David, I'm going to give you one chance to apologise to me for breaking my rules.
No, that's awful. It's so awful.
David Nixon said, no, I will not apologise. I stand by what I said, and I would say it again. So the judge sent him to prison for 8 weeks. For that.
Yeah.
For contempt of court.
Contempt of court, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about the climate change in our court.
We can.
When we're going to yeah, we can, definitely. But you have to be clever. If you wait up to all the end, there might not be time. So you have to be clever and smart and start talking about the climate change and your motivation right from the beginning, and put it in constantly during the process, and not wait until the very end.
Yeah, in my opinion, jurors should have the information from the climate scientists, because not everybody knows the climate crisis is a real threat yet. Some people are still not sure. So I don't think it's fair to have jury members who are not really sure that the climate change is real yet on the decision, because we are not scientists, we're the messenger. Because you get a lot of people in the UK who think climate change is a lie. Climate change is a myth, and those people do end up on jurors in the UK. And obviously, when you get a climate activist in front of somebody like that, they're going to find them guilty no matter what they say. Yeah.
We don't have that system with a jury. We have the top person, what's that called now? The judge, and three persons that sit beside, and they are actually they are involved in politics. So they come from the different parties. You don't know they could be from any of the parties, but they come from the political work. So that's also really, really strange.
That sounds worse. That sounds worse than
It is worse, and that makes it really, really hard, of course, to win your case. But we will continue fighting, because what else can we do? We just have to fill up the timetable in the courts with just the climate activists on the day after the other. What can we do? There is nothing else.
Can I ask? So what's your success rate been like in the courts? Like, how many people like guilty versus not guilty? What's it been coming out as?
I mean, I would say 99%. I think there's been 1 or 2 people engaged in an XR blockade, but that was in the city. That also got sabotaged, but were freed. Otherwise, everyone is that's what we. I mean, it's no question. You go there and you know that you will be guilty.
Mm-hmm.
You will not be freed in court. That's not happening yet. Not at all. Whatever you say.
So here in the UK, I've spoken to lots of different people who are trying lots of different routes. So there are people in the UK who are trying to press charges against the government for their crimes. And I've talked to people who have been trying to push down the police route because the government's actions in the UK investing in oil is causing danger to life. And therefore the police in the UK have a responsibility to act and arrest the people who are causing danger to life. And this report has been given to the Met Police in London, and they've just not acted on it. So now there's people trying to push down like the official routes of inquiry of why the police are refusing to follow their own laws. Have you been talking to anybody like that in your country who are trying like the different channels?
We have this group of young people, and they put charges towards our government, our state. But that is for not. I can't remember how. I can't explain what the reasons are for them. It has to do with that they are destroying their future and not caring about life, because this is what's happening. They're not caring about our life and our possibilities to live a full good life. So they are pressing charges. But this would take long time. It's gone through now from one instance to the next, so it's a process that's ongoing, but will take a long time.
We don't have a long time.
Exactly, we don't have a long time, and then and then we're trying these different routes, like talking about morale, or talking about nödrätt. What's that? Like the emergency. I mean, there is a law that says that if there is an emergency, you can break the law.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it better
in the UK, it's called necessity. So in the UK, we have the same law, and the way I explain it to people is, if, let's say for example, you go to your neighbour's house and you kick the front door and break the front door in and go in their house, then that is illegal. But if, for example, if that house was on fire and now you go and kick the door in, all of a sudden it's okay to break that law because you have necessity. And the judges in the UK have been ruling out necessity. We're not allowed to use that argument here in the UK anymore.
Okay, well, that's the argument that we are using, most of us. We're talking about the necessity. And yeah, it's a process, but but you had in England, they were the solicitors that said we are not standing up in court. We are not. How do you say it?
Prosecuting.
They refuse to accuse climate activists, right? So, well, this is what we're waiting for. And you just have to be like this one who's like the water in a stone, you know. Mm-hmm. When it is said, this is metaphor, one drop, and eventually you will get there. And we just have to be resistant and continue with our court cases. I mean, the actions continue all the way into court, into prison, and then it comes back, we go back again. Mm-hmm. And hopefully people it's really, really hard to mobilize in Sweden. Really, really hard. People are so convenient with their lives. We think that we live in a democracy that takes care of everyone equally. It's actually changing quite fast. But this is the picture that we have of our own country. And people are so convenient, thinking about themselves, very individualistic, and makes it hard for us to convince people that you have to go out on the street. There is nothing else you can do. You cannot do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot go in legal demonstrations. You cannot sign up and send money to the big organizations. You cannot be sitting on the like a square to protest and that in that way. You have to be on highways.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we have to be, and day after the other. But it's hard.
So I want to ask, here in the UK we have people who are striking. So we have for example, the doctors and nurses, they're striking saying we want more money or we're not working. The train drivers are striking. Loads of different people are striking because the bills have gone up and the mortgages have gone up, but the pay hasn't followed. Do you have people in Sweden who are also striking?
Not in the same way as in UK. We have that tradition, but it's far back in the history now, since it's been such a prosperous country where people are rich, and there we have the welfare system, but it's breaking down. But still, not strikes in the way as you have it in UK. We had a strike with the train drivers were striking because it was not safe for them to. They got rid of people who walks up and along the carriages, taking courses of the safety and so on, and you got rid of those people, and it was not safe for the train drivers today. Then we had a strike, but it's not really happening yet. But hopefully soon, because it's going down definitely. And we had this crisis with the electricity, that the prices went up really, really high during the winter, and then things are starting slowly to crack up. And people are slowly realizing that things might not be as they think it is. So yeah.
Okay, because the reason I asked that question is because here in the UK, there's a lot of people striking like this, and there's more people striking than there are people protesting about climate change. So I know people now who are trying to bring together the strikers and the climate activists to all work together under one banner. And I've been suggesting that we try and help the striking people to use civil resistance as their method as well, because there's so many more of those people that civil resistance becomes a lot stronger when there's more people added. Another thing I want to ask you, right? So this is going to be maybe a difficult question, but I ask it all the time. If you say if you was given control of Swedish policy, and you could change a bunch of things, what 5 things would you change in your country? What can you think of off the top of your head?
I think you only need to change one thing.
Yeah.
And that is to have a national citizen assembly, and also citizen assemblies in each city or municipality. And that's the only thing you need. You need to recreate democracy, and it needs to be the people. It's only the people that actually can save us. It's only the people who can make those difficult situations. And I truly believe that people, when they sit together and discuss, they are intelligent, and they will get hold of their empathy. They will understand what they need to they will understand what decisions they have to make to create a society that is full of love and compassion and good values. So that would be the one and only one, I think.
If you're gonna, if you're gonna do that, you have to have laws to protect those people, because if you've got to say, for example, the companies that do the peat mining, they make so much money, they could go to the people in the citizens' assembly, like one person at a time, and say, we'll give you €1,000,000 to vote this way. And if there's only like 500 people in your citizens' assembly, €500 million for these big companies is not very much money. But to all those people, that is a lot of money. And we need to find a way of protecting a citizens' assembly from the outside corruption of money. And you need strong laws to stop that from happening in any way. So no loopholes. So like you could say, you can't give money to these people, but then they could come along and say, okay, well, I'll give you shares in my business. You need to say, no, that can't happen either. Or I'll give your family money, and you say, no, that can't happen either. You have to have a law that's very thorough, that doesn't have any loopholes, to stop the power of money from influencing our politics. Because if you ask me and many other people right now, I'm sure you'd agree, the power of money has influenced all Western democracies.
For sure.
And it's manipulating our democracies and controlling our politicians to do things that are not in our best interest.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much corruption, even in Sweden. If we're talking about the Swedish forest, for instance, it's absolutely crazy how much corruption there are. Also gets all the way into the universities. They're also bought, the researchers, and it's a terrible situation. I know it's a complicated. It's complicated, but there is no other option. So it has to be manageable. And I'm not an expert, but there are people that are probably really good at this. So, and there are different ways of creating citizen assemblies with different chambers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen how you can construct a citizen assembly in different ways. With different mandates and different time you sit in the assembly can also change according to what kind of mandate that chamber has. So,
mm-hmm.
But I'm not an expert.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to believe in a good society. You have to believe that you have to trust that people deep inside are good people. Otherwise, I don't know for what reason I'm fighting.
Well, for me, you ask about what reason you're fighting for. Yeah, there's a lot of bad people in the world, but then again, there's a lot of good people, you know. And I said this before. So like, if like, think about I like to think about Carl Sagan, the pale blue dot. Have you ever heard that?
No.
No. So basically, in the 1990s, Voyager. Do you know what Voyager 1 is? The Voyager 1. Okay, I'll briefly explain. So in the 60s, they sent out a satellite, and they basically slingshot it off all the planets and send it flying away into space, like for a long time. And 30 years later, Carl Sagan asked the scientists to turn the satellite around and take a picture of Earth to send back to Earth. And the picture they got back was a tiny little blue dot on the screen.
Yeah.
And Carl Sagan said, like, here on that tiny blue dot there is every single human who has ever lived, every child, every mother, every king, every queen, everyone you've ever heard of, everybody in human history is on that tiny little speck. And if you think about the Earth, it's a tiny speck in the universe compared to how big everything is. And everyone you love, everyone you know, every child, everybody is on that tiny speck. And it really, for me, it puts things into perspective. Like, because that tiny speck, that's the only place we can live. We can't go outside of it. We can't go live on Mars or the moon yet anyway. But right now we're stuck on this tiny little planet. And we need to protect it because it's our only home. It's like being on a boat in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and people are putting holes in it, and it's like there's only one boat, you know? So yeah, I guess you think about all the way I like to think about it as well is when we think about the future of our children and the future of humanity, it can seem very abstract, like those words don't really have the meaning in your mind, what they really do mean. But I like to think about it as human experiences. So the most important experiences in a human life are the first time a mother holds her baby. Like the first time a mother holds a baby, you know, the young love between like young people when they fall in love for the first time, you know, the first time a father holds their baby, the love between like a grandparent and their grandchildren, you know, old friendships and young friendships and all these amazing experiences. And that's just one life. So imagine times in that by billions of lives. And it's billions of experiences that are potentially going to be lost because of the climate crisis. And I think when you think about it in terms of human experiences, rather than just a word like children's futures, it can kind of change the way that you think about it, if that makes sense. And I think that's very important because people aren't registering with what it actually means on a human level. They're not emotionally connecting to what it really means.
No, that's true. It's a strong story.
Mm-hmm.
And well, it makes me start to think also about like young people in the near future. They're going to hold their baby for the first time, maybe in an environment that is completely chaotic, like conflicts everywhere about water, about food, people running for their lives. So that's the new experiences that we are like. This is what we're giving to future generations, or even to the young generation of today. If we're not fighting, they will be holding their baby in a completely disastrous future.
Yeah. So I think part of that speech that you read out covered this exact point. I'm trying to remember exactly how it went now. I think that was it. So if we don't solve this problem quickly, children alive in this very moment will grow up in a world on the brink of collapse, with ever-increasing wildfires, heat waves, and droughts. And what it'll mean for you as a parent is you having to put your children to bed hungry and crying as you try to explain to them why they can't have any food right now, whilst you yourself feel sick with hunger because you've already given them what little food you had early that morning. And the situation at that point will be beyond repair. And at that point, there'll be nothing you can do about it because the climate will have already passed that point of no return, and things will only get worse from there on.
Yeah, exactly. So the issue now is more, I mean, we have the climate systems, and some of them are already past their tipping point. And if one more climate system is tipping over, it will affect the next one, and so on. So the issue now is that we have to take control of what kind of society we want to have.
Yes.
When we are facing all these difficulties, all these conflicts. What kind of society we want. And I think that's the main motivation. This is one of the motivations for me to continue, because I'm terrified of what will happen in the near future, and I don't want my children or any child to live in such societies where like we build walls, we shoot people, we control people's thoughts and minds, gone with everything that is our rights, really, as a human being. And also, I can't stand. I can't even think of all the suffering that we are causing that's also one thing that motivates me, because it's so painful to think about. I can't even think about it. But this is enormous suffering to man and animal and nature. It makes me feel. Well, there are no words, really.
And I do feel that feeling too. Have you seen what's happening to the coral reefs right now?
Yeah.
There's a brilliant documentary on Netflix called Chasing Coral, where they show. Well, it's, if you already know what's happening to the coral reefs and you don't need to see it, it's just going to make you more upset. But it's a brilliant.
I avoid. I can't even see one of these beautiful films about nature any longer, because the only thing I can think of is that this is in the past already. This is burning up, or we are cutting the trees down, and this is, for me, it's such a sad story, because this beautiful, this richness. We are eliminating it, and causing suffering, and we are causing immense suffering to other people on Earth right now, in this very moment, right now, and it's the children of the world. We're causing this immense suffering.
Well, I can speak to that, because I've had. I was speaking to somebody from Ethiopia recently, and they were telling me that parts of their country, it's not rained in 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, they're experiencing the worst drought ever, and all the plants and all the animals are dying and dead. And they were saying, like, when you go down the road, like, it's just a dust bowl. It's just empty, dead land, and there's like dead cows, like all the way down the road, who just, if you're a farmer and you've got, like, I don't know, 100 cows and they're all eating the grass, and one day it stops raining and that's it doesn't rain again for 4 years with strong heat, all the grass dies, all the water dries up, you have to leave the area before you die, and you just got to leave your cows behind. They're gonna have to find their own way, and they'll die too. So it's happening right now. But one message I want to share with everybody who's watching this video is we can cause change. Like, you, the people, can cause change. And this episode is your evidence, because we started something here in the UK, and that spread to Sweden, and it spread to Australia, and it spread to Germany and America and Canada. So it just goes to show that your climate activism can inspire other people around the world to take action and risk their own freedom. But you need to have the bravery to stand up in defense of life on Earth and say, I refuse to stand aside. I refuse to stand aside and let this break down. And that courage is what inspires other people to take action. And together, we can do this. This is a numbers game. Like, look how much a small group of people, how much of a headache it's caused for the government here in the UK, and how much it's caused for other countries around the world with their governments. Like, a very, very, very small number of people, it's driving them crazy, Can you imagine if we had 100,000 people in the UK? It'd be over. The government could not do anything. Like, they would not be able to throw everybody into prison, because they don't have enough spaces. Like, there's nothing. They would. If we had when we get enough people to overwhelm the police and overwhelm the prisons and overwhelm the government, they will have no choice but to meet our demands, and that will happen. And another point I want to say as well is, I'm repeating myself to all my guests, but I want you to hear this too. So, even if we have passed the point of no return with the climate, and the several tipping points have been passed now, right? It's still not the end, because we have billions of people on this planet who live in places where they're not going to be able to live 10 years, 20 years from now. So why don't we start moving these people early? Why don't we start building the houses, the schools, the hospitals? We'll say, okay, here we have 1 billion people, and in 10 years, they're all going to leave and have to go. Why don't we start moving them now? Why don't we give them the visas? Here's the visa, here's your train ticket, here's the house you're going to go to, here's the school your children are going to go to, and we're going to move you and protect you. We could still save billions of lives. We could grow our food inside warehouses protected from climate heat, and we could collect the rainwater, and we could replant all the rainforests, and we could replant all the wetlands, and we could be proactive in trying to save lives and build resilience into our countries and our communities, and we could still save billions of lives. So don't give up. Don't lose hope.
There are millions of things to do. You just have to carry on. There is no other option. You just have to carry on. Yeah.
So can I ask, how has it been for your mental health since you started taking action? So from when you went from just looking at the problem to fighting the problem, did you find that helped with your mental health or not?
Definitely. I think it's giving you a lot of strength, a lot of power, a lot of hope in a way. Most of all, the hope that you together with that. I mean, this is a difficult discussion as well. Hope or not hope, and if you lose your hope, the action begins and so on. But to be together with people that are engaged is really, really powerful, and and that community is extremely important, and that gives you energy. And besides that, being engaged in this way, it's hard work every day, like 7 days a week. But it's worth everything to be engaged in that work. So, like thinking about if you're tired, not, or hungry or not, it's not that important, because you have this work to do, and you just have to do it together with other people.
It's very fulfilling, in my opinion. Yeah. Okay, so we've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes.
Wow.
I want you to think, is there any topics or campaigns or things that you would like to talk about that you've not yet talked about before we round up? Because I'm gonna round up in about maybe 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I need to think about that. Because I've just split out. I've got 1,000 things to do, and I'm now, when you got hands-on to things that you have to do, it means it's almost like a builder. You have to build things now. I have to build things now. They are waiting here to be worked on. So my head is full up with that, I think.
Okay, no worries. Don't worry about it then. Have you enjoyed this conversation, this process we've had today?
Definitely, because the best of all is to see you, since you've been a part of our history. So it's really nice to have this conversation with, especially you.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot to me, because I've given this so much of my time and sacrificed so much. So it's nice to have some appreciation sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we've covered most things there. I'm gonna round up, finish this episode off. But I want you to clarify. You can come on this show as many times as you like. If you got something new you want to talk about, just message me and we'll get you straight back on.
I will send. There are so many people you should talk to. I will send someone else next time.
Yeah, send some more people, and we'll get some more people from Sweden to talk about their experiences. Recording these episodes cost me zero money to produce. So we can just do as many as you want. So we're not restricted. We get as many people as you want to come on the show. Okay?
Yeah, I will send some over.
Okay, well, right. So I'm gonna round up. So if you've watched this so far and all the way to this point and you've really enjoyed it, please help us out by sharing it with your friends and your family, and share it into your Signal group chats, because this cause that we're all fighting for is very important, and it's the cause. It's the most important cause, if you ask me. And this channel there's no other channels like this at the minute where we're actually interviewing climate activists in this way. And yeah, so help us out by sharing, subscribing, liking, all the rest of it. Is there any last thing that you would like to say before we go? No pressure.
Always these last things. Oh my God, just keep on fighting.
Keep on fighting.
Keep on fighting. Keep on sitting down.
Or slow marching.
We are the tongue that speaks the truth. We are the song upon the wind. We are the courage to stand forth. We are the change that now begins. On this good green earth, we will take a stand with an open heart and a healing hand. With an open heart and a healing hand.